Welcome to Dependable Flame, where we explore vintage petrol lighters, ashtrays, tobacciana, and other useful mechanisms. Make yourself at home. Today we are going to disassemble the actuating mechanism and clear the flint tube on this Albert Jamaica Souvenir lighter. You want to start by removing the fulcrum cap from what I would typically think of as the back side, but it's only the back side of the lighter when you're working on it. When it is being displayed, I would think of that as the front side of the lighter. So you get that fulcrum cap off, then you ought to be able to put pressure, keep pressure from the top on your entire mechanism. First, before we get too carried away here, you get your flint spring screw loosened, and you are going to remove that flint spring screw and the flint spring, which should be attached to it. Then back to the thumb pressure from the top and remove the fulcrum screw with the other hand. We'll get all this cleaned up here in a minute. Then all your mechanism should come up and out off the top of the lighter. You can see that that piston spring stayed behind. It will come out of there here in a minute and get cleaned up. So you can take all this apart, and this is pretty much the same as any Ronson standard type clone lighter. The clutch spring is integrated there into the top of the cap and works together with those teeth on the side. The file wheel definitely has some buildup on it, so we will put everything off into some 91% isopropyl alcohol, let that soak for a little bit. We will use our usual toothpick and common household disinfectant wipe to get everything cleaned off here from the top of the lighter, and also to get the alcohol and any grime cleaned off of the individual parts before we reassemble that mechanism and get this lighter back together and sparking again. To put it back together, we will start with our thumb lever and the thumb lever spring, or piston spring, however you want to refer to that. Those go together like that and then fall down that shaft. Have your paw or claws pointing toward the front so that they can grab the gears on the side of the snuffer mechanism. This particular snuffer was a little bit different in that those gears were loose in there but didn't necessarily want to pop out. So they were kind of held in there snugly. There may have been a rim or a burr on them on the outside and inside. So I had to separate them before I could drop that file wheel down in there. But that all works just as all the Ronson type automatic lighters. We've talked about it several times. Nothing new here. You get that all lined up. If you don't line this up correctly the first time, your mistake will become evident when you go to actuate the mechanism or work the lighter. So you just seat that all down into place like that. Then your fulcrum screw should slide right in. The mechanism then is moving freely, and you can install the fulcrum cap on the back side of that fulcrum screw. It's always nice if you can get that started with your fingers, and I gave it a good effort here, but I don't believe I was able to get it started at all. I think I had to put the screwdriver on it, which is always a little bit nerve-wracking. I'm not trying to mar up any lighters, so take your time, be deliberate. Don't just be sliding that screwdriver around on that delicate and somewhat fragile plating. I always try to use just my fingernail on the back side, as I am here, to tighten that down. I don't put 2 screwdrivers on it to tighten it. If it ever loosens up past that, then there's a bigger problem. But that's just the way that I do them. You may have a personal preference that is otherwise. You can see that flint was already grooved, so we will slide it back down in that same direction. Give it a shake and hope that it all falls back into that groove. Otherwise, we may have a longer time getting it grooved back the way we want it. Get our flint spring and flint spring screws tightened down behind it. Some of these screws in these old Japanese lighters feel like they get bound up in there, and you don't necessarily have the free movement of the screw like you would think you should or wish you would. They will sometimes, you won't be able to stop it where you're making your progress. So once you start threading that thing down there, then you're going to have to keep going until you get all the way down, or it won't stay. It'll just twist itself back out of there. Now we've got that flint grooved and throwing sparks, so I'm going to go ahead and use the pull and snip method on this wick. Pull it up a little bit with a pair of pliers to where you've got new, clean, uncontaminated wick exposed there. And I'm going to trim that off. You want to be careful. We talked about this in a couple of videos here recently, but I don't know about the asbestos content in these wicks, so try not to inhale it. Try to dispose of it cleanly as possible. Don't just leave it laying around. I think it is better if you cut it when it's wet than it is dry for those fibers to get in the air. But I don't know. I don't know if the exposure level with these small wicks is enough that it's something you should really concern yourself with or not. I mean, we're all combusting things and sucking them into our lungs. So, but if you are worried about those kind of things, and take precautions, and we're all wearing masks for other reasons right now. Maybe you put on a mask when you're cutting on those wicks. I don't think it's that big a deal though, lighting off of it or inhaling it, as long as those fibers are not getting into your lungs. I don't think it's the fumes or anything like that, but what I know. I'm just trying to get this thing to light up reliably so that I can sell it. And it did light there finally, and then I snuffed it. It acts like maybe it's low on fuel. Maybe the wick is contaminated. I don't know. Doesn't seem to be acting exactly right off the bat here, and I'd already fueled that lighter up. I got a request today about how to re-wick it, so keep your eyes out. That will probably be a video that we will have available and ready in short order. I know that the recent fueling causes some instability and blowback right there around that wick, but it is crazy sometimes how with fuel right there these lighters won't light. Very mercurial sort of process. Until next time.